Well, this week at Coffee and Tools, we continue working on the Volkswagen, and we try to find out some secrets. The odd thing was there was a really strange noise at the back of the engine, and the car wasn't running right. So I found this thing and I removed it. Man, it seems to work a lot better now without this. Okay, so much for the bad turbo joke, whatever. This past week I took the turbo out and changed it, and it was a problem, but it wasn't a problem, so we'll get into it. The other problem was that the old turbo was leaking oil, and so it was technically blown. There was pressure, but it wasn't working right, and we're still having problems, so we'll find out. Yeah, the old Volkswagen is proving to be quite a challenge, I guess. Some of the modification changes I will not get into in the last couple of weeks even. Really what I wanted to cover this week was that crazy turbo job. Now, so much for the bad joke about the turbo. Well, I did take the turbo out. Replaced it, got a new turbo in there. Now, that didn't fix the problems, and I'm not going to get into the problems right now. What I want to talk about is the turbo itself. So I'm going to come over here and just take a quick look. First big question. Okay, I'm going to rip the old turbo, put the new turbo in. Do I take it from the top and pull it out there somehow, or do I take it out the bottom of the car? So I looked at both on the internet. Looked at all the YouTube channels I could find at the time. Tried to do some research first. Couldn't get any recommendations. I don't have anybody around here that works on a bug, so that's not helpful at all. And just checking the internet, they seem to be two schools of thought. The long way to get the turbo out was to come through the top. The shortcut is the bottom. The downside with pulling it out of the bottom, however, is that they said it was more restrictive in you wouldn't have as much room to work with or something. Well, you know, if you're going to work on a Volkswagen, you already don't have a lot of room. So, hey, this is not a new country or a new area we haven't already been to. So I said, you know what, we'll pull it out the bottom. So that's what I decided to do. But I discovered something that I'm going to share with anyone else that ever thinks about doing this. Let's see if we can show this down here. Probably not. Let's see what we can do. Here's the thing. Most of the channels that I did see that talked about the turbo, they unbolt this. They take the whole drive shaft out of the way first. And because this is basically like universal joints, it's a CV joint, it's flexible at both ends virtually. So what I did was I unbolted at the transmission end, turned it along, and I jacked just this wheel up against the rest of the body of the car. So this wheel sort of pushed up on an angle a little bit, well, without the tire on it, of course. And actually, I think no, you know what? I left the tire on. I didn't even take the tire off for that job. And so what I did at the time was just force the CV joint forward a little bit to come out of the socket that's back there, that's in the transmission bracket, and then laid it down. So then this whole CV joint is laying down. It's out of the way. You have a complete big space to reach up now and get at all the bolts. I could even get both arms in at one point to work on the getting the turbo and removing it. Took my time. Took 3.5 hours to pull Mr. Turbo out of there. And it took about 3.5 hours to install the new turbo, which I thought was really strange. But I took my time both ways because, let's face it, this was for me, this was a first. You know, I have never. Okay, so let's say you're going to pull the turbo out of the bottom of the car, like I did. The very first thing you're going to need, the very first thing, you may have to run up and buy this first. It's the triple square. For some reason on the internet it was said to use the 10mm. For some reason mine's 12mm, so I don't know what happened there, but I picked this setup here. I got that locally at a auto store called O'Reilly's. They carried it. It was about $6.50. I didn't want to spend a lot of money, obviously, because this is pretty much a specialized tool. Granted, if you're going to deal with Volkswagen, apparently this is some of the things you will need triple square. And this is I guess we'll call it the male triple square as opposed to a female socket type wrench triple square. I guess they probably have those too, right? But this is the very first thing you're going to need. And the 12 is I think it's the biggest one. Yeah, it's the biggest one in the pack. So if I need something bigger than that, I would have been out of luck. But that was the very first thing. And that's to actually unfasten the bolts for the axle off the transmission. I guess we could talk about the sockets and ratchets and some of the different tools that we use when we're working on cars, you know, but everybody's a little different. Everybody has their own thing as far as the sockets go. I'm going to kind of leave that information off because basically, you know, metric tools is obviously that's what you're going to need. Whether you have an air ratchet or you don't, I don't think you don't even need something like that. It's just something I like to use. I also have these little guys like this that, you know, can get into really tight places and extensions and whatever. And I have, of course, Torx bits. This is my, you know, my Craftsman set laying here right now that I was using towards the car. But socket-wise, I probably shouldn't cover it because we all have our own thing. When you get your replacement turbo, you're going to probably get one, and there's going to be a stud kit with it. Don't put the studs in until after the turbo has been installed, then come back to install the studding, because what happens is it's just a whole lot easier to put the unit in, you know, and minimize what you're putting in. Then once everything's bolted in place and you're finishing up, you put your studs in and you go ahead and do this is the exhaust side anyways, but just another one of those, I guess we'll call that a tip, you know, when if you're going to do a job like this. Yeah. Okay. On another helpful hint, you're also going to get a new set of gaskets. They're going to be a little bit different than the manufacturers, the OEM gaskets. That is up to you. I mean, you know, whatever you like to do. But there's going to be some questions here, I'm sure, if you're a newbie or you know, this is your first auto. You're going to get these metal type looking gaskets, and yeah, this is actually your gasket. It has a high side and it has like a I guess we'll say the female or pocket side. So the high side actually in this case is going to go out like this, and this is going to give you your seal. Yeah, I just thought I should point this out because I know a lot of people will get this gasket and say, you know, oh man, which way do I put this thing on? And this is there's the procedure, just so you're aware that this high piece right here, that's going to be your seal against the new exhaust port when you bolt back to your exhaust pipe, etc. All right, hey, all good. Let's go. Let's keep going. Off the top of the let's see if we can get this better. Off the top of the manifold, you're also going to come up on this little item right here, this gizmo. And what this is the pipe that's going to be tying it into the cooling system, which works on part of the EGR system. And it's going to be going on like this. Now, what happened with mine was I actually put a block-off plate here because I have the EGR delete kit. And I'm keeping all the parts because I'm just trying the delete kit and seeing if I'm happy with it or not. There's a couple of drawbacks to having an EGR delete kit. The good part is you get rid of a lot of, you know, you get rid of a lot of stuff like this right here, which, you know, if I don't have to have that on my car, I like it already. One last other thing too, when you're doing a job like this on a car, always do it as safely as you possibly can to maintain that car stays up in the air. If it falls, it's not going to be pretty, but you can also control it so that if it falls, it can't come down far enough to create any hazards. So even though the car was jacked up and it was also on those ramps, I also had a set of these, which are just pretty inexpensive, really. They're just the Pittsburgh, a 3-ton from Harbor Freight, and I put these in various points under the car, a couple of them, while I was doing everything. Ideally, it was like if everything failed and the car came down, it would end up on these. I would still have lots of room for me to be under there with the car and thereby not even get hurt. And ultimately, we're not here to, you know, I'm here to have fun with the car, not to get hurt. Okay, I said something about having fun with the car. Okay, my fun is to, you know, install a turbo in my Volkswagen. Hey, it's all good. Thank you for watching Coffee and Tools. I hope the video helped a little bit. If you're, you know, going to do a turbo job for the very first time on a Beetle, and it might even be one of the other, like the Jetta, one of the other cars by VW. Basically, the same principles kind of pretty much stay true. So hopefully, maybe that'll help you a little bit towards making some decisions and tackling the job. I've never done a turbo before, but like say 3.5 hours out, 3.5 hours in, it was not that bad at all, really. It sounds horrible, but when you actually do the job, it was no big deal. Thank you for watching Coffee and Tools. I'm going to provide a link down below to where I found my turbo, and again, if you click on that, it'll help to support the channel. Bye for now.